listening to the Motherhood Experience, a podcast where you are part of the conversation with moms, for moms, and by moms. Let's jump into this episode with me, your host, Val Kleppen. It's another week here on the Motherhood Experience podcast. So glad to have you with me today. Today, my guest is a coworker, but has been a friend and acquaintance for over 15 years now. Bridgette Bitzegaio joins me on the Motherhood Experience. A funny story real quick. This has nothing to do with Bridgette other than it's her last name. 2008, I interviewed for a position with a different company to be an executive assistant for the director of IT at the time, who was her husband, Matt. And it was a different office that called me to schedule the interview. And they called me and said, you know, at such and such a time on this day, go in and you'll interview with Matt. And I said, okay, what's his last name so that I know who to ask for when I show up? And there was hesitation on the other end of the line. And I heard, with my hearing loss, I heard, it's a guy. And I thought she was telling me, like, hey, idiot, his name is Matt. It's a guy. Go for your interview. When I got there and he introduced himself to me, I was like, oh, his last name is Bitzegaio. And I think the hesitation on the other end was hesitation in pronunciation because it's not spelled like Bitzegaio. Anyway, funny story that doesn't mean anything and has nothing to do with Bridgette, but I'm so thankful that Bridgette joined me today. Before I launch right into the interview here, just asking, simple favor, if you will rate us on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, a 5-star rating would be greatly appreciated. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and always feel free to email me and be a part of the conversation at info@themotherhoodexperience.com. And now on to my conversation with mom and friend, Bridgette Bitzegaio. Welcome, Bridgette. I am so excited to have you as a guest here on the Motherhood Experience. You and I go way back. And before we get into that, I would love for you to just say hello to everyone and tell me the ages and stages of your motherhood right now.
Yes. Hello. Well, I'm so excited to be here. I was so glad when you asked. I am in full swing of teenage years. So we have a young adult daughter, Caitlin, who is 19. We have a son who is a sophomore in high school. So he is turning 16 on Sunday, actually. And then and then we have a 7th grade son too, Andrew, he's 13 and he's in 7th grade. So we are in the teenage years of parenting and motherhood.
Full throttle.
Yes,
Full
exactly.
Throttle. I was going to ask you to introduce how you and I knew each other, because when we had the team photography a couple of years ago, and Matt, your husband, is my boss, and we were taking an administrative photo together, and I'm just going to share it. You just turned and you said, Matt and Val have been together since I was pregnant with Brady. And Matt and I just looked at each other, and I think Matt looked at you and said, don't ever introduce us like that again. But you meant Matt and I have been working together since you were pregnant. Caitlin was, how was she? 3?
She was probably 3 because she and Brady are about 3.5 years apart. So
yeah. And you were pregnant with Brady when I started working with Matt, and
16 years ago, right?
16 years ago. Oh my goodness, he'll be 16 on Sunday. So yes, we have known each other for a long time. I've worked with your husband for a long time, and now you are also one of my coworkers too, which is so much fun.
I know, what a journey, right? I always say Matt and my worlds, like, career-wise, never collided at all. I was, a teacher, and he was in, tech and all those things, and it never collided. And then, I started a nonprofit, and then I started working for Matt, and so it just, now we live together, work together every day, all day. And it's great. It's amazing, but I never saw that happening. So it's been quite a journey. So It's awesome.
So let me ask you about that then. You said that you were a teacher. Tell me about, first of all, when you and Matt were married, did you know right away, were you always going to be a family centric mom type, or were kids kind of, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't?
No, we were big on, yeah, wanting to have kids and family centric. I wanted two, or no, I wanted three. Matt wanted two. And then we always joke that the person who wants two probably wins out in that conversation. But then
Right.
after we had two, he really wanted another one as well. And Andrew just really rounded out our family, and it was great. I mean, we had a girl and a boy with our first two, but yeah, so we always wanted kids. I always also wanted a career. I was kind of
Mhm.
on that path where I knew I wanted to be a mom, and I was a teacher and I wanted to do that. And honestly, the mom job is the greatest joy in my life, and I've taken quite a few different career paths, which I wouldn't have seen coming either, but it has been great to be able to, yeah, have both of those paths. But it was always family was always really important to
Yeah.
us, and we both come from a family of three children as well, so it's kind of interesting, and we're both middle children, which is kind of funny too. So
Well, that is funny. I don't think I realized that. That is funny. So talk to me about teaching then. Was it because you have a love for teaching, or because you have a love for children in general, or kind of both? Walk me through that.
I think it was both, honestly. I think at first I thought it was a love of children. Like my after school jobs were never at fast food restaurants or anything like that. I always was worked at a daycare or an after school program, and just really loved working with kids and with people. I'm always kind of a people person. I come from a family of educators. My great grandmother was a teacher. My mother, is a retired teacher. My dad is a retired high school counselor of many, many years of decades of that. So it just, I don't know, it just kind of felt natural to me to be a teacher. And then now I'm still teaching, but now it's like corporate training. So it's a
Right.
different path, but I'm still also, like I said, I also started a nonprofit where I still get to work with people, and that because I was a music teacher for many, many years and then still got to do that. But I even took a break with like in that whole thing and did daycare when we had Andrew, our third one. I took a break from teaching and did home daycare, which I loved. So I've kind of, yeah, been in all ages and stages of caring for kids, teaching kids, and having my own kids. And I've loved it. So teaching, I do think I've always, yeah, had a passion for teaching people things, whether that was music or, doing daycare or whatever that might be. It was just always important to me. I think one of my gifts is just sharing and teaching people,
Mm.
whether that's little kids or, in between and now into, training adults. I like sharing, and I like learning and growing and kind of, you know, helping other people do that too.
So when your kids started in school, did they start going to the school where you were teaching?
They did not at first. So they were in separate schools. I was in teaching in Minnesota for a little bit, and they were in North Dakota. So we actually were like off schedule of each other, even
Oh,
for like
okay.
breaks and stuff for a little bit. But then my last 4 years teaching, we were in the same school. So I actually taught my two youngest children when they were in elementary music for a few years, which was fun. We had like conversations about what are you going to call me in the classroom, and how does that make you feel if I'm your teacher and your mom? And I had my mom as a teacher, so to me it wasn't that big of a deal. Because I feel
Yeah.
like I kind of mom all my students a little bit too. So that was interesting, and I actually loved being in the same school as them for that kind of camaraderie of the school and being together and knowing their teachers. And there's always another side to that where you obviously know their teachers and you know exactly what's going on in school too. So they probably didn't have as much independence during their later elementary years as maybe other kids do, but it was really fun, and the kids still talk about that, and they talk about it with their friends too. Remember, when your mom was our teacher? And some of them still called me Mrs. B for a long time, and I was like,
Aw.
you can call me Bridgette, it's okay. Now that
It's
we're in my house, you can call me Bridgette. So
so when you were teaching elementary music, were those what is it like to be an elementary music teacher? Is it adorable and endearing? Is it frustrating and a painstaking process? Like, I'm sure we all have our own kind of biases to what it might be, but what was it like from your experience?
It was all of those things. I'm very like there's so much value in teaching music, and I think that was important to me, that it wasn't just a break or having fun. It is those things, like your brain does need that and your body needs that, but to me it was also just teaching music is important to not only a love of music but just as a curriculum. I think it's important. And so it was kind of all of those things. I tried to combine all of those things into my teaching. And, kindergarten, the day we made a circle was like a huge celebration. The fact that we got up and moved into a circle was important. And we celebrated that. And then fifth grade, they're getting into their independence. And I just loved all of the stages of teaching, kind of honestly the same way I've enjoyed all the stages of parenting, if I'm being honest. I've actually, in this journey, kind of just enjoyed all of those stages and of teaching and in parenting. It was fun to see my own kids kind of go through it too at the same time.
So that I have a few different paths I want to take in asking you a question now. So let's see if I can keep myself straight here. So being a music teacher and your nonprofit also is Adapt Music, which I would love for you to talk about later, that incorporates music for those with special needs. Is your household a musical household?
It is a musical household. Yeah. I mean, we're not like having a band together because we all have, I always joke that we have a family plan on Spotify. And if you ever, like, they do a mix of like your family plan, and it goes anywhere from like folk music to rap music to musicals to, I mean, it's kind of the gamut. And so that's always been important to us, where music's just always been a part of what we've done. I was terrible at giving my own children piano lessons. So that's, that was one area. They weren't big on piano lessons, any of them, which is kind of funny. But
Right.
it is musical, but they all have kind of different musical tastes. And Matt is also an amazing singer, so that his family is very musical too. So we kind of have this generational love of music. And so we all kind of play different instruments, like guitars, and Andrew, our youngest, plays the upright bass, and he's learning bass guitar. And our daughter was a violin player first before she did anything else, which was totally new to like Matt and I. I had no idea. I mean, I learned how to play violin in college to be a music teacher, but that's my extent of,
Wow.
of instruments. But she loves that. And then she got into singing. And our middle child loves singing and music, but choir, band, and orchestra wasn't really his thing either, which was great. He kind of he took it in middle school, and then he decided not to in high school. And I kind of think he thought there was an expectation, and we're like, no, just be you and take the classes you want to take. But it definitely is a part of, I would say, our house. We have music playing, or people are singing, or, it's just always kind of a piece of our house. So
Yeah. I can't imagine life without music, really.
yeah.
And people who just like to sit in quiet, like I get that, sitting in quiet and silence for, a little bit, but like I gotta have music on.
Oh, I love it. I always joke that I always would tell my fifth graders, because we did like a musical theater, part of teaching. And I usually did, their program was kind of musical theater. And I joked and said, oh, if I could live my life like a musical and just break out into song whenever I wanted. And then I kind of paused and said, oh, I kind of do that anyway, like a little bit, if I'm being honest. So yeah, whether it's dancing in your kitchen because you're stressed out, or I always laugh and turn on 90s music and clean, like it's just
Right.
kind of, it's just kind of a piece of, our home.
I gotta say, we grew up in an era that produced some pretty stellar cleaning music.
It's really, it's kind of that alternative rock. You turn that on and it's like, you can really do some cleaning to some 90s alternative rock. So
my shower grout has never been cleaner thanks to 90s alternative.
exactly.
So you mentioned about each stage of parenthood you've just enjoyed, and that's one thing that we've talked about with other guests on here, is how you appreciate each stage when you're in it so much. And even as it goes on, you miss some of the stages previously, but you still really enjoy the stage that you enter into. Is there a stage that you miss now that all of your kids are teenagers?
I don't know that I miss any stage, if I'm being honest. I love like babies, but I was just saying the other day, I think as you kind of grow into your parenting too, I'm like, oh, I like it now to like smell and cuddle and rock a baby, but then I'm good to like go into the teenage conversations now. I really did. I don't necessarily miss any stage. I did love babies. I just think it's, I was kind of a baby person. I liked them at that stage. I was just joking with our kids the other day that we kind of have poster children for like strong-willed children, which I love now that they're like getting into young adulthood. I love it. But when they were 2, 3, 4, it was like Caitlin tells a story of, strong-willed children of like, I think we took most of the toys out of her room and then she didn't care because she's like, well, you just had to put them all back. We kind of joke that that's still kind of how it is. So I think the toddler stage I miss the least.
Yeah.
But I also have to say, I don't think I ever would have said I love the teenage years, but I do. I love that
Mm,
they are their own people. They have personalities and you can communicate and I don't know, just connect with them on a different level too, now that they're kind
yeah.
of their own people with opinions, which is great and not so great
Right.
as teenagers
Depending
or the
on the day.
household. Yeah, it depends on the day and the opinion. No, but it
Right.
is great. I never would have said I would have loved this stage of teenagers because I didn't like teaching teenagers necessarily. I mean, I liked
Mm,
it, but I felt more comfortable in like elementary age. So I spent a lot of my career teaching elementary students and
yeah.
kind of was like, oh, middle school. But I
Yeah.
actually enjoy my children at that age too. So, which is kind of surprising a little bit, if I'm being honest.
I love it. I started as a secondary ed major, and then for a solid year from June to June, I taught Wednesday night Bible class at church for
Yeah.
sixth through eighth grade. And I
Yeah.
changed my major after that. I was like, I'm out.
I know. I taught middle school for 2 years. I did K through 12 for 2 years. And I was like,
Wow.
and I was 23 years old. You
Yeah,
know what I
right.
mean? So,
Right.
I mean, I wasn't much older than my seniors in high school, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I taught those 2 years of middle school. I learned a lot. And then I also was like, I think I need to go into the elementary classroom. Like, it just wasn't for me. So I always say, bless the hearts of every middle school teacher
Yeah.
that keeps doing that for decades because it is a journey. But I do enjoy I don't mind parenting in the teenage years though. So
Right. And that would be a difference.
yeah.
That would be a difference. So walk me through the dynamic of having an overlapping season of life where you're working full time,
Mhm.
you're running a nonprofit like solo. It's just you changing the lives of all these people, and you're mothering 3 teenagers, one in college.
Yep.
What is the dynamic for all of those things overlapping one another?
It's busy, but I think it's a good busy and a good thing to show our kids. We're always about saying we can do hard things or busy isn't bad and all of these things. And I think now we're modeling that in this
Mhm.
stage. And I think it's great for our kids to see how Matt and I both have a passion for something and putting a lot of time and effort into that, but yet keeping family first too, and carving out the time to do the activities with our kids and all of that. So it's a balancing act for sure. And I definitely probably don't get it right all of the time, but I also think it's great to model that for our children. That if you work really hard at something and you want to put the time and effort into it, it's worth it. But that's also a choice you have to make too. So
I love that answer, and I would agree, and I also love working from home for that reason.
yes, I don't know how
So
I did it teaching into it. And I did it. I was a teacher full time and ran the nonprofit and had kids and a million things. So I did it. I much prefer working from home, and having that flexibility. That has kind of been a game changer for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the flexibility it provides, but also the model that it shows
Mhm.
for work ethic and prioritizing and time management and all of those things for my kids, because we're homeschooling too in the midst of
Mhm.
it. And so just having that window into both worlds for them, I think is so important. What has been one of the biggest struggles of parenting for you?
I'm gonna be honest, I like to control things. Like, I'm a very type A person, and I'm just gonna be honest, I like control of things. Like, I
Yeah.
like to know what's happening. I like to plan for what's going to happen, and, life just has not been that way necessarily. So for me, I think that's the biggest struggle is, letting go of controlling things, but also then modeling that for my children. Cause I'm like, oh, okay, well, you can do this and this and this, and you can't control those things. And then now that they're teenagers, they're like, oh, do you think maybe Tuesday you could have taken that same advice? And I'm like, yes, that is true. So for me personally, that can just not, and it's not control like I want them to do what I want them to do. I want to make sure things are good for my family, and I want to
Mhm.
control the outcomes that I can control. But that is just not life. And honestly, at this stage of parenting, Matt and I both talk about being a lighthouse parent instead of a helicopter parent, where you're trying to guide and give
Yes.
them space instead of hovering and being that helicopter parent. And that's very hard for me, if I'm being completely honest, because I want to go in and fix it, and I want to fix it
Mm,
now. And if you did this, then this would be better, but kind of trying to let them not fail, but a little bit, where it's
yeah.
like, making mistakes that you learn from, and what do you take from that. And so, yeah, being a lighthouse rather than a helicopter and kind of letting go of that control is, yeah, harder for me personally.
I love that so much. I love that lighthouse analogy so much. And I don't know if you can talk about this or not, but I know that one of your children has had some health issues that haven't necessarily been resolved or
Mhm.
determined as to the cause of that. And so how has that played into your heart as a mom and watching your kid go through this? If we can talk about this, if not, I can
Yeah,
edit it out.
no,
Um, but in your mom heart and watching her endure this, but also, having to relinquish that control.
that's been really hard too, I have to say. As my personality of a fixer, I want to research it and get a plan and do this. And yeah, Caitlin's been diagnosed with POTS, which has not been a wide known thing. And so I didn't know about it either until I started researching it. And having a diagnosis of a chronic illness that changes your child's life, but also having them be 18 when it happened.
Mm,
And, this kind of weird thing of they're an adult, so they make their own choices, but you're trying to guide and help and still be a part of it. It's been a very interesting journey. Prayer, honestly, about it, and then just again trying to give advice. But my job, I know at this point in her life, is not to instruct, but to guide and listen and be there. And she's done an amazing job with this journey. And there's definitely highs and lows and ups and downs, and we're still navigating it. But she's also really taken control of it. And I think that was what had to happen too. Was I wasn't going to be able to fix it for her, and there wasn't a magic fix, period. Like, there just isn't a magic
mm,
fix, and it's hard, and trying to find the lessons in the hard and keep going, and resilience. So we always say in our house, we can do hard things, but I think this last year in different ways has definitely proved that, across the board in our house, and we've had to kind of really walk that walk. So yeah, it's
yeah.
she has an amazing personality for it, and Matt and I are good partners in that. When she wants somebody just to listen, sometimes she'll go to Matt for that, and then I'm like the fixer, so she wants somebody to maybe take more action, then she kind of comes to me. So I
Yeah.
think our kids figure that out, and we kind of figure that out with our kids too. Like, we're a good team that way because we're different. So we
Right.
definitely have different strengths and weaknesses. So
Right. But what a testament to the partnership of, you know, of you are their mother and this is your motherhood journey, but also you wouldn't have been able to do it or navigate or get this far without their dad. And,
no.
you know, even their siblings with the
Mm-hmm.
team that you guys are. I love that so much. So what about, you know, you talked about relinquishing control and these health issues that certainly no control over, still working through them. What kind of role has your faith journey played into your motherhood?
Oh, I mean, I always say I get through my days with coffee and prayer. Because honestly, I think a lot of days, um, it's good to know that I don't have to be the one that's in control and I don't have to have the plan because somebody else does. So that for me, in the end, through all of the hard things and through all of that, it's great knowing that whatever does get put on our plate. And I think sometimes we expect life to be easier or we want it to
Mhm.
be easier, but that's not the promise. But the promise is that you can handle whatever comes your way. And so I think, you know, I'm like, oh, I would rather not do this. Or, you know, but I think my faith in that is how I do get through it. And honestly, that comes from Matt and my parents and our grandparents. And we've had very faith driven families, which has been awesome. And we've both had people in our lives that actually a lot of it has been health related,
Mhm.
had to rely on faith because it wasn't easy, but they were some of the most faithful people we know and knew in our lives. And so I think we had great examples of that. And then when it happens to you or it comes onto your plate, you're like, okay, I had a good example of this. I
Yeah,
have this, you know, foundation, but now I have to lean into that. So it's not just, again, walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And so,
right,
yeah.
right. So what kind of memories do you hope? Like I know you guys do, Matt does hunting trips with the boys and Caitlin's in all these musicals and you know, life is just kind of going on, but you do family vacations together. What kind of memories do you hope your kids will look back on with fondness because you and Matt look forward to them now with fondness as a family?
Yeah, I think we've seen a little bit of it come to light already. We do an annual fishing trip up to Canada, and we took the kids when they were little, and sometimes it was like hot mess. You know, they didn't want to be in the boat, or it was hot, and there's no electronics, and you know all these things. And we were kind of like, okay, but these are going to be good memories one day, and they are, and they're still doing it. And now when they can
Mhm.
choose, like Caitlin at 19 can choose to come along or not come along, and she still chooses to come along. And I think that is the benefit of all of that hard work, because sometimes it's not, I mean, enjoyable. I mean, it is enjoyable, but it's not when they're fighting in the car and you're like, is it
Right.
all worth it? And it is. You know, we found some video clips of like the kids in the car and they were arguing and they were recording each other. And now I laugh about it. I was not, you can hear me not laughing about it on the video. So it's pretty funny. But I think, yeah, now that they opt in, you know,
Mhm.
I think that's important. I think that's what I love about that is they opt into family time. Like our boys, you know, I laugh and say my 15-year-old got into golfing and Matt golfed and my 13-year-old wanted to do it. And then they asked me and I was like, I'm terrible at golf. I don't like doing things I'm not good at. But I'm like, when your 15 and 13-year-old ask you to do something and it's going to take like hours of their time, you're like, yes, I will do that. So that's been fun too, that now not only do they opt in, but they ask to do things together. So I think that's the benefit of it and why it was
Yeah.
important to us and still is important, because I don't think there'll be a day where I go, oh, I really wish I would have worked more, or I mean, I do wish my floors were cleaner sometimes, but but I will always take the memories of doing things with our children and showing up for them and with them,
Yeah.
I think is important.
Yeah. That's so great. So I want to take a little turn here and ask you because you're in a stage of parenting that I don't want to say entering into, but I know it's like right there. It's right at the door.
Mhm.
and that is children entering into relationships. So what is that like for you, and what is it like, seeing your children dating and having these boyfriends or girlfriends and help?
Yeah, no. I mean, that was new for us too. And we kind of went into it open handed, if I'm being completely honest, because I don't think we had all of the answers, and really prayerfully, but then also knowing that it really is, again, their decision,
Mhm.
in some of the things. So you have guidelines and you hope to guide them, and, all the things that you hope and pray for them. And then you just hope the things that you taught them help them to pick somebody that's a good match for them, and that has been the case. So we're just kind of getting into that too, but then also being very welcoming, because I think that was really big for both Matt and my family. We were always very welcoming to the significant other of that person. And honestly, like for us, both of us, we feel like a part of each other's families, not only because we're together in high school and now
Right.
married for 27 years. That's not the case. It really was because of how our families were so welcoming to us, and invited
Mhm.
us into the activities and invited us along to those things. And I think that was important. So we've always tried to kind of be that too, where it's like inviting them along and including them. So, instead of pushing out, welcoming in, and just kind of having them be a part of that. So
Well, I'm encouraged, Bridget, in that you didn't launch into it's scary and it's terrible and lock them up while you can.
no, honestly, I don't feel like that. Of all the things, it definitely is a piece of it, and navigating for them too. And I think allowing them all of the feelings, and then also remembering how we felt at that age, because I think that's a big piece of it too, is like, do
Yeah.
you remember when we were, 16 and dating, and all of those things too. So I go into it very open handed to say I don't have all the answers, and we kind of muddle our way through, but so far it's working. So we'll take it.
Oh, good. And so I do want to circle back and have you talk about adapt music a little bit. Coming from a teaching background and having 3 kids, what what is adapt music and what prompted you to pursue it and fill this gap that you saw?
Yeah. So Adapt Music, a nonprofit I started, that provides music enrichment and education activities to people with special needs. Kind of honestly, what happened was I was able to teach adaptive music in my teaching career, as a job. And I was like, I love this. Music has power. I love working with people with special needs. I have a heart for that. And I just think it was important. And I'm like, um, someone should do this in the community. And, and Matt was like, well, maybe you should do this in the community. And I was like, oh, no, I'm a teacher. I work at school. And, kind of gently pushed me along into something that I did have a passion for and just found purpose in it. I was like, it's important. I do feel like music is a leveling kind of feel. It levels the field for people, if I'm being honest,
Mm.
because people of all abilities, can experience the power of music and the love of music and the pure, honestly, joy and peace it can bring and all these different things. So I just think it has power. And I love that. So now what Adapt Music does is my car is filled with musical instruments, and I bring the fun of music to groups that serve people with special needs. So whether we adapt things visually or physically, the instruments, or sensory, we have instruments that are quieter sounding, or scarves and ribbons you can put on your wrists instead of holding your hands, and then bring that in to the people who already serve, a group that might have a diverse need. We're able to bring in the instruments and the expertise and the education of music and that kind of resources, and bring that in, and they provide the space and the people, and honestly together we just create something fun. Yeah, so Adapt Music, creating it and providing musical experiences for people. We say it's for people of all abilities, because I think that's what's neat about it. And working with groups that serve people with diverse needs has just been so rewarding. And I was saying that Caitlin, who is a music major at NDSU, now also comes and does the sessions with me and joins
Aw.
in the fun and loves just the relationships that we're building with people and in our community. I think it's important. And again, like with my own kids, I think it's great to see giving back to others where you can. And this is just one area that I feel strongly about and have a passion for. And so trying to show again my children that if you have a passion for something, you can make it work. And yeah, helping other people too experience the same things you have passions for is important.
So I love that you've been able to navigate all of these different tracks, I guess, of life, where working as a teacher or as an in-home daycare, starting this nonprofit, working with your husband and the business that he built. I mean, that's not easy either, but you just have this attitude of anything is possible, and I'm going to jump in and at least try it. And I love it so much, Bridgette.
Well, thank you. I think that's honestly from the people around me. I am not. I'm not a jump in and try it kind of a person. That is not how people would explain me, I don't think. But with some gentle pushing from the people in my life that support me and love me, from my family to everybody else, the community, that encouragement. I think, yeah, I always say surround yourself with people who have strengths maybe that you don't have, and then together it makes it works out. So I think that's for me, is the people around me have really pushed me into places that I don't think I would have. I would probably just have stayed being a teacher and not tried anything new. You know what I mean? So yeah, these different these different avenues and tracks and journeys have taught me a lot about myself. And then also, yeah, just have people around you that kind of help push you into that and build you up when maybe you don't, that's not your go-to kind of attitude about it. So
Yeah. Well, Bridgette, I just appreciate you agreeing to do this so much. I know that it's kind of different. I don't want to say weird because it's not weird, but it's different in the sense that I came into your life as an employee of your husband's, totally separate of anything that you were doing at the time. And now all these 16 years later, and we're all working together and, planning company parties and meetings and all of this stuff together. And it's just been such a blast to be able to just observe over the last 16 years. I still can't believe that everything that you have been able to do and aspire to do and accomplish. And it's just been really sweet to see. And I am so thrilled that you agreed to be a guest on the Motherhood Experience.
well, I think it's amazing you're doing this, and I feel honored to be invited. Like I said, I don't feel like an expert in anything, but I guess if I've been around for all the experiences of, of my motherhood journey, so I guess I'm an expert at talking about them. But I think it's amazing that you're just having this conversation with people too, because I think a lot of times we sometimes think we're alone in it, maybe, or oh, does anybody else's kids do this, or and then learning from people that have gone before you and done it and had kids in, different stages before you. So I think it's amazing. I soak in all of the parenting podcasts and self-help books. My kids laugh about, if there's a self-help book to be had, I will find it, or a podcast to listen to. So I love that the Motherhood Experience is on that list now and can not only listen to it, but be a part of it. So very honored for that too.
I appreciate that. And I do love how multiple guests have said, once they kind of share their story, their journey through motherhood, and they hear themselves share it and talk about it, they're like, wow, I've never thought about my motherhood journey from this light, but now I've shared this timeline, and goodness, we've done a lot.
Yeah, when you lay it out, you're like, oh, yeah, that was 16 years ago. Or, oh, yeah, we do have a 19-year-old child. So, yeah, we've been doing this for a minute and learned a lot. And my catchphrase is that, the thing that I learned is that I don't know anything at all. It's kind of what my children have taught me. As I go from, the different stages and their different personalities, I say, the more I think I know, the lesson I learn is that I don't know much, but
it can
but
be,
I'm in it.
It can be pretty humbling, I think, when we've reached a certain stage of parenting And the kids are kind of like, actually, Mom. It's pretty humbling.
I know, especially when they tell you to take your own advice, you're like, yeah, I accept that.
Oh, goodness. Well, this has been a lot of fun. And can I send people to Adapt Music's website so they can check out and learn more about you?
Yeah, I would love that. Adaptmusic.org. Yeah, Fargo Moorhead community. If you know of a group or if you just know of anybody that might be interested in it, yeah, I encourage you to head over there and check it out. It's been amazing and fun. And yeah, please do.
Yes. Well, I know that I've got a lot of listeners in the Fargo Moorhead area. So yes, if you're hearing this today, go check out Bridget's website, adaptmusic.org. And do you have like volunteer spots open or ways for people to donate and learn more?
We do. So you can go on there, talk about volunteering. I always love that. And even, my sessions are kind of in each group, but also then learning about the groups that we kind of work with, I think is super cool. But yeah, you can donate, you can find out more, you can join our email list and all of those things and kind of keep up to date with it. But it's very fun and rewarding. I think I get maybe more out of it than anybody else, but I love it. And it's been fun. So
yes, indeed. All right. Well, Bridgette, I love you dearly.
I love you too.
And I will see you tomorrow at work.
In our day jobs, right? Oh, I love it. So, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Motherhood Experience podcast. To join our exclusive TME community, head on over to themotherhoodexperience.com/learn more. Be sure to follow the Motherhood Experience on Facebook and Instagram, and please leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.